In this video, we're going to be discussing 10 of the best decks in Marvel Snap. These decks have been created and identified using a variety of different sources and statistics to ensure that you're getting the most competitive decks to help you rank up in Marvel Snap. With that being said, if you like to support the series, hit the like button. It does a tremendous amount for the video and the channel, and it is absolutely free, and of course, you have my appreciation. Let's get started with deck number 1. Now, it's worth noting here that Ghost Spider is the brand new Season Pass card, and honestly, it seems to be a performer. It's going to be in a few of the decks here that we're talking about today, but I'm going to have a lot of variety here as well. But Ghost Spider seems like it's pretty damn good. And in deck number 1, Ghost Spider has a role to play in Cloak and Dagger. At a 62% win rate, Cloak and Dagger is a very strong list. One of the highlights of the deck is actually the Human Torch. Now, although it's susceptible to Killmonger, Human Torch in conjunction with something like a Hulkbuster can legitimately put up an incredible amount of power, because if you Hulkbuster the Human Torch and the Human Torch moves, you're getting this additional power on top of the standard Human Torch, so it doubles alongside. It's a huge boost, kind of like what Deadpool does. Dagger has the ability to be moved around the board to create an incredible high power card for a 2 cost. It's pretty insane what Dagger can do. And of course, Cloak allows you to move the Dagger reliably. Perhaps what's most interesting about this list here is that you have Ghost Spider themselves, and Ghost Spider provides you with a very reliable move card that allows you to basically pull a Vulture that you may have played on turn 5. Turn 4s often look like you play Iron Fist into Vulture, and then what you do is you pull the Vulture with the Ghost Spider, and then you're able to play Morales at a discount as well. And then maybe, just maybe on turn 6, you drop that Heimdall. Regardless, with a move deck like this, you have a ton of options, and it's one of the reasons why move is so strong right now. In our second deck list, we have another deck featuring Ghost Spider, but the kind of premise around this one's a little different. We are in the move season after all. This one has a 62% win rate, much like the other. However, what you're doing here is you're actually running the multiple man in conjunction with the Hulkbuster. Now, there's an addition of a couple cards here that I really like. I love the addition of Juggernaut, especially when you consider what turn 5 wave is doing to the current meta. It destroys Sera control lists, it destroys Surfer lists. I mean, it even kind of destroys move lists, honestly. It destroys everything. So you might be thinking, Alex, then why would you play Wave in this list? Well, if you think about it, you can actually Dagger on turn 5 alongside a Wave, right? I mean, you could play pretty much anything. You can play Cloak alongside that Wave. But realistically, you have Wave and a 2 cost, probably Dagger. And then if you Heimdall, well then, like, Dagger's getting tons of value, your Vulture gets lots of value, your multiple man replicates, and like your opponent's just like, well, what do I get? I get to play one card and they're getting all this value with a 6/8 in Heimdall. You can also shut down a location completely with Arrow, right? Which is fantastic. You're basically guaranteeing they're only playing one card, and you could force feed it into a specific location. This gives you a lot of tools to be very successful on turn 5 and 6, specifically with the tech use of Wave. I think that Wave kind of elevates this list a little bit. You could probably get a little more power out of the other list that we just spoke about, but I do think that Wave is one of the best cards in Marvel Snap right now because of its ability to shut down complete popular deck archetypes. Bounce as a whole is still an archetype that you can rely on in the current meta, and Bast Bounce is the latest iteration of the decks that has a very high skill cap and honestly a very high power potential. Bast obviously benefits pretty much every card here, and if you have a turn 1 Bast, you're pretty much in a snappable position. If you get Bast a little later, you can still Falcon it, you can still Beast it, you can do all these different things. Ideally though, you really want to play Beast on top of Kitty Pryde to make Kitty Pryde free, but with this list and its very low power curve, that's not even completely necessary, because honestly, like, you're likely to be able to play out your cards on turn 6 anyways. The key performer here is Mysterio. Now, I hate to say it, I know I get this question all the time. You know, what do I replace Mysterio with? Mysterio is tricky to replace in this list because it acts as a 3-card play for Hitmonkey, so Hitmonkey gets huge just off Mysterio alone. It also gives +3 to Bishop, and it actually procs an Angela proc as well because it actually gets played into the lane. So Mysterio is uniquely a very good card in this list and feels a little irreplaceable. Falcon works wonderfully with Collector, as does Beast, but realistically, Collector's not going to run up to massive heights. It's the Kitty Pryde, it's the Hitmonkey, it's the Bishop and Angela that really perform well. You have the added disruption of Iceman and Korg, which is pretty fun too, but ultimately, this deck does reach pretty high with the closing power of Hitmonkey. Of all the decks that took people to Infinite last season, without question, High Evolutionary Control would have been at the top of the list. It's one of those decks that honestly performs extremely good under almost all circumstances, and its inclusion of Professor X is great. That's not Professor X, this is Professor X. The inclusion of Professor X is fantastic because Professor X hard counters move decks. If you play Professor X mid, move decks basically cry. Like, it's hard for them to really account for that. So that is a great card. If you don't have Jeff, take Jeff out, put Daredevil in. Daredevil is a great choice here as well because it allows you to play Professor X confidently, Spider-Man confidently, and so you do get a lot of value from there. But overall, it's just a damn good cards list. You're playing High Evolutionary and some of its highest performers. You've got the Wasp, you got Cyclops. This isn't running Storm, but you have quite a bit of lockdown. The reason why Storm underperforms here is because move is really good against Storm, because like you kind of lock yourself at a lane that a move deck can kind of play into. So the newest version of High Evolutionary Control takes the Storm element out to counteract the move style decks and adds something like a Professor X, which honestly is absolutely fantastic. All right, Galactus is still good. It's only a 53% win rate, but it's enough to steadily climb towards Infinite. It still represents about 8% of the current meta. I think some people are starting to wear down on it a little bit, but yes, it's still out there, and yes, most decks have to have some form of answer to Galactus, as it's going to basically be, you know, 1 in every 10 games at a minimum. But yeah, it's the same list. It's been the same list for a while. There's some cards that change here and there, but realistically, it's this list. You're going to see it nonstop. I know it's annoying, but it's still one of the meta decks. One of my absolute favorite things about Marvel Snap is when decks come out from the woodwork, especially ones that were kind of unexpected. And that's exactly what happened to Janejaw. Janejaw went from being on our hidden gem list a few weeks back to being discussed on the Snapchat. And then now it is literally everywhere. It is one of the most popular decks in the current meta and rising. From a hidden gem to a true performer, Janejaw is actually a great deck. It has a 57% win rate, so not quite as high as some of the more, you know, stronger lists that we were talking about before with the move and with the High Evolutionary, but it in its own right, like it can still perform, and it has very high highs naturally when you have Lockjaw. Whenever you're playing Lockjaw based lists, like, I mean, you're going to high roll, and that's exactly what this deck does. It's greedy as hell, right? It's so greedy. But I do like the inclusion of Wasp, especially with the High Evolutionary as well. Overall, I do like this list. I think it's a lot of fun to play. You just have to kind of identify when, like, you know what? You got to retreat. Like, if you don't have Lockjaw and they snap, then you probably got to go. Like, it's just that simple, right? Like, don't force yourself into games because you're like, I might be able to high roll something. It's just, if Lockjaw's not on turn 3 and they're snapping, you just walk away. But once you understand the snapping mechanics of that, you're generally going to do really well, because like even if you play Lockjaw 3, Jubilee on 4, like you're guaranteed to hit something if Wasp is in your hand, and then you get to play Jane Foster, get the Mjolnir and the Wasp, and just start feeding that Lockjaw. So overall, I do think that this deck is a lot of fun to play, and it's a proven performer. Sera Control, what can I say? Absolutely love this deck. It's been one of the absolute mainstays of the meta, and it continues to be a good performer. But at 55%, I think what you're seeing here is people are just getting used to playing against it. They're identifying that Hitmonkey play pattern. They know what's coming. They see Sera drop on the board on turn 5, and they're like, yeah, I don't have enough power for a Hitmonkey, and they just retreat. So I think some of that is kind of bleeding into the win rate a little bit. But what this deck does is it does feature Killmonger, which is an excellent card in the current meta. And of course, you're going to set up some value for yourself with the Nova, but Killmonger is going to take out the Nebulas. It's going to take out the Human Torches, which are all over the place right now in some of the top meta decks. But realistically, without the use of Professor X, its ability to mitigate move is somewhat limited, so just bear that in mind. Like, the High Evolutionary list has a higher win rate because with Professor X, Jeff, and Daredevil, you have a greater ability to shut down the popularity of move, so just keep that in mind. But this deck honestly can handle pretty much everything you send out. It's got the Enchanters, it's got the Shang-Chi, it's got Killmonger, it's got Mysterio, Bishop, Angela, so they can reach, and of course that closing turn with Hitmonkey is absolutely massive, so this deck can do it all. And now we're on to my favorite part of the video, where we talk about the hidden gems. We've got 3 decks. So the first is going to be Ghost Stature, and it's kind of funny because like this was like the meta deck 2-3 weeks ago. Then it got nerfed a little bit, and people were like, oh, Black Bolt's a 5/8, and you know, Stature's a 5/6 now, so 2 power difference on 2 cards, 1 power each. No, this deck sucks. I'm not going to play it. Now it's completely fallen off the meta. And now you have the inclusion of Ghost Spider, which allows you to proc that Miles Morales, which allows you to get rid of something like the Polaris, which you still can play, but you're able to get the Miles Morales value with something like a Ghost Spider while also benefiting your board state. while also disrupting theirs. Like, okay, there are 3 cards in this deck that recently got nerfed. You do have the Rock Slide, you have Stature, and you have Black Bolt. But honestly, Nebula is still fantastic. Darkhawk is still fantastic. You know, Shang-Chi, arguably still the best card in Marvel Snap. So this just does it all. It does it right. And you know what? A lot of people aren't prepared for this because, like, it was meta a couple weeks ago, and now it's completely fallen off, and people aren't playing it. So if you've got the cards and you have the Season Pass, this is a deck that probably can help carry you to Infinite. Doom Evolution, what can I say? At a 64% win rate, it's a solid deck. And it's funny because on the Snapchat, Coccia actually said, you know what, Alex? You pretty much can add Dr. Doom to any deck, and it just gets better eventually. And that's exactly what happened here. You had a high evolutionary base list, you add some tech like Wave, which is just beautiful. With that tech, you're able to get some god tier gameplay with your Scorpion into Abomination. You've got your Luke Cage to deal with the other high evolutionaries, and some people are pulling Luke Cage out of their high evolutionary decks now because, like, high evolutionary is kind of starting to dwindle in popularity. It's still it's still the #1 archetype overall, but you're seeing slightly less Luke Cage, which allows you to play the Scorpion into the Abomination play, right? So you're able to get a little bit greedier, which is cool. I do like this list a lot. It's a good performer. I do personally like lists with Storm in it because you have the Storm Cyclops combination, but I mean, the stats show that this gets it done. So if you're looking for a list with high evolutionary and Doom in it, then this one's got you covered. It has been a damn long time since we talked about a disruption list, and at 64%, Ghost Spider Disrupt has been absolutely spanking the last few days, and I gotta tell you, I like it a lot. Anytime you can disrupt someone's hand with, like, Black Widow, you got Titania, you got Green Goblin, there's all these cards that I love. Oh man, you got the Viper play with the Hood. It's too spicy. It's too spicy. You can kick over a rock and just take up space. And the great thing about this is that, like, move like needs space to operate, and you completely destroy them. And Doc Ock is just the absolute troll play. And of course you have the Shang-Chi to follow up the Doc Octopus if Doc Ock does not get Shang-Chi itself, of course. So the whole deck here is like, I'm just gonna piss someone off. I'm just gonna piss everyone off. I'm gonna pull things out of their hand. I'm gonna stuff their board state. I'm gonna just make everything a hellish landscape for the opposing player. And I love this deck list, and you're gonna be seeing a video on it later this week on the channel, because, like, this is the one that I've been having a ton of fun with, and I'm glad it's performing so well, because Disrupt is one of those archetypes that I feel like gets, you know, a little forgotten sometimes, and it's a lot of fun to play. I got another video for you down below if you'd like to continue watching some Marvel Snap content. That's actually the Snapchat with Coccia. We're in the move season, and we had Move Master Molt on there, who basically, we talked about a ton of move related stuff. So check it out, and we'll see you in the next Marvel Snap video.